Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome to India GameChanger. Today we are joined by Amit Gupta, a co-founder at gogoBus. I like the extra "go" by the way at the beginning. Amit, thank you so much for joining the show. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me over here. It's extremely excited to talk to you guys. Thank you.
I am super happy to have you as well. Before we get into the main part of the conversation, why don't we get a little bit of your background for some context?
So, to give you a background about myself, if you ask about, I have been into the different aspect of the mobility. So, I'm mariner by qualification. If you ask me, sail on ship, close to see different part of the culture, different part of the country while working on the ship. I think that's what the beauty of the while you're working on the shipping. And after working for almost 2.5 years, I moved out and then work in consulting space where largely working, advising a lot of the big four clients servicing, thinking about putting up the investment into the heavy infrastructure, largely
Okay.
talking about ports, shipbuilding yards, or maybe the railway yards, or maybe the airport. So, how basically mixing up both the aspect of the logistics and the heavy infrastructure investment that has been my core forte before I was bitten by the entrepreneurial bug, like if I say almost 7, 8 years back, I started a venture by the name of Verolog. It was basically into the last mile e-commerce delivery. But one of the things which we realized is although the e-commerce was picking up at that point of time, but if you talk about the last mile delivery, or if I say what these days I've been talking about quick commerce delivery and the 10-minute delivery, so I used to do that in 2012, where largely servicing or helping out the e-commerce client to get the delivery to make them their customer or a happy customer. And I think that was some way to larger extent we were able to deliver the performance and which actually became a significant amount of a game changer for a lot of the young e-commerce startup at that point of time. And I think that where you find happiness on the client that make you also happy. That was one of the fundamental reasons. Ran that for almost 2.5, 3 years at a bootstrap level. But then you realize if you have to go bigger and deeper, you have to go at a much, much larger scale. So, but when we are not able to go much deeper into that, I take with lots of learnings around of learning almost to the level that you are learning every day, how they are impacting the life of the consumers, or how you're impacting the life of the delivery boys who are actually working with you on a daily basis. That was one thing, the biggest part. But then after having lots of learning, I realized he's not reaching up to the right level. I think sometimes as a business person, as an entrepreneur, you have to take a conscious call, although it's a very, very difficult call at that point of time. If I look
Right.
at the hindsight, yes, but I think that was the decision which we took. We closed that venture. And that's where I think my journey with the passenger mobility started when I joined one of the leading, I would say at that point of time, we were just starting up. The idea was how we can actually help out the people to reach the office. Because at that point of time, Ola and Uber was almost becoming a ubiquitous number or the name in the Indian continent. But how you can actually help out the people to reach their office daily. So that's when I
Right.
joined a company called Shuttle, which is SHUTTL, which you call them. They got a lot of exciting investments also from the
They did.
interesting VCs also, but at the same time, the biggest part was you are impacting the daily life, the people who are looking to go in a respectable way to an office because there was a huge gap. Like either you go by a two-wheeler or a shared, I would call it tempos or autos in India, or you have a private car or taxi. So there's a huge gap between the affordability range and the comfortable range, where shuttle was beautifully fitting over there, and we were lucky enough to scale up the operations from almost zero to 1,500 buses in almost 7 cities in almost 4 years' time. So that was my learning with shuttle was, and this
Did
is
you
yeah.
can I ask you this about shuttle? Did you build your own buses or did you use existing buses? Do you know what I mean? That and then just or did you own your own fleet of buses to build this shuttle business?
So we don't own any of the fleet assets, so it was completely asset-light model. Rather, we
Okay.
convinced those operators to work along with us. It was something similar, like we were providing the entire technology, both the back end and the front end, where we are
Right.
connecting the consumers with the owner of the bus and make sure the systems is running on the platform. That's what we were doing.
Okay. And what did you learn from doing that? I guess the real question, let me back up for a second. The real question for me is you worked at a consulting company. You were consulting for other big companies and advising them, and then you say you got the entrepreneurial bug. I feel like people that get the entrepreneurial bug are like surfers. Once you ride a wave, you want to keep riding, and then sometimes you look and you see a bigger wave, and you're thinking, "Can I ride the bigger wave?" Whatever it is, I just want to be riding waves, kind of thing. Do you feel like it's the same thing? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you feel like you could go back to being a consultant, or do you feel like you're an entrepreneur now and like that's it? You can't do anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely before taking a backyard. So I think I can relate to some much bigger, it's a better analogy if I talk about like if you have to move faster, you have to jump faster. Like when my first entrepreneurship journey, we had certain amount of learning where you realize still a lot of the learnings has to be there because you're building up an organization, you're building up a company, you're not building up a like small venture which is just going to be
Right.
helping out certain people. So I think the first startup when you move from a corporate culture to the entrepreneurship, you had certain amount of learnings like how the organizations has to build, how the teams has to be built, how you're basically motivating the team, how you're making sure that the team is going along with the mission and the vision of the company. I think that was the biggest learning at that point of time. Yes, you can get a lot of raw blood, raw passions around to build that, but
Right.
at one point of time, you also need to take a conscious call whether you are going in the right direction. So sometimes taking a step back to make a bigger leap is most critical. So if I put it in that way, like after closing my first venture, when I joined Shuttle as an employee, you can call it as an employee, but that was the biggest launch pad, I would say, to plan for something big, which we are doing right now. We are talking about
Right.
much bigger scale. We are talking about much bigger, deeper penetration. And the impact which was being created at a particular level, like say you're solving for a particular demographic of the population. Over here, what we are doing right now is impacting at much larger scale, where and specifically during the COVID time, all of a sudden what we are building became much more critical. Like if I talk about in terms of number, there are more than 400,000 buses are running across India, which is running on the longer distance. And all of a sudden, when the COVID lockdown happened, this all brought to standstill. All lot of the assets, like out of 400,000 crores, 50, 60% was on the bank lease. All of a sudden, these operators start thinking, how do I run my business? How do I run my family? How do I pay the drivers, operators, and all the you have direct and indirect employment, all those got standstill. And I think that was a eureka moment for us when these type of people start approaching us. Can you help us in rebuilding our business? Can you help us in resurrecting ourselves? How you can actually come back? How we can actually use the smart technology and data to good? Because they understand okay, travel, although it has been curtailed for some time, but how we can go to the next level. So that's what I think the biggest learning, what we were like from past learning and what we are doing currently, that we are doing right now.
Can we talk a little bit about what so inside the country travel was like at the beginning of COVID and maybe how it's changed today and just where the bus companies came in? And I'll tell you why I want to know this. You said there are 400,000
Exactly.
buses. That's a lot of buses, but are there like four companies or are there 10,000? You know what I mean? Like how many companies are there? So then how do you organize that fragmented market using this platform? How does all that work with
So if we
technology?
talk about there are more than 2,500 companies in India, which we call as the bus operator. And these bus operators
Okay.
have typically the fleet of anything between 2 to 10 buses going up to say 500 buses. The people who are big, so they have close to 400, 500 buses in their plant fleet. But largely it is the capex heavy, which they're owning that asset or leasing that asset. I think the COVID, what has actually happened is the people who are owning those assets, they have almost gone down to, let's say, all of a sudden the assets start minting money. The business is all about cash flow happening up, the money flowing happening up. All of a sudden, when the cash flow stopped, everything got to standstill. So they were real in
Right.
problems at that point of time.
So what exactly does gogoBus do? How does it help the bus operators organize? How does it help them be more efficient? Are there fixed routes that the buses go on all the time, or do they just try to figure out where people are and then try to make the route more efficient as they
So
go
I think
along?
there's a mix of both. So we are using the mix of past learning, how the buses are being operating. There's certain amount of the sanctity around the routes has to be there, but definitely make sure how we are getting the new age involvement, like how the demands is changing. Can we build around some sort of a dynamic algorithm or dynamic platform or the dynamic routing to these buses where they can actually move around? To be very frank, cut and short, the long story, what we are trying to basically do right now is which we call it very, very I would say we take a pride in calling our tribe. We are working towards empowering the small and medium-sized bus operator, as I mentioned, by providing them end-to-end technology. And so that, specifically in the post-COVID scenario, how I can basically help they increase their accessibility and the profitability, because these are the two things which is most critical in this market. And during this journey, where we are working around to build around the fleet management and fleet utilization, helping them to manage their daily demands, how to manage their revenue leakages. So all the plethora of things under a one complete platform we are trying to deliver.
And is there a B2C part of this as well? Right. So if I'm a bus operator,
Yeah,
let me just walk through this for a little bit. If I'm a bus operator, I clearly want to optimize. And I like this how you said, what did you call it?
yeah,
Business leakage or revenue leakage, right? In other words, if I did it just a little bit
yeah.
differently, I could make more money, but also be more efficient and help serve my clients better. But in a way, just like Ola, you said, and Uber, if I order a taxi, I know where the taxi is, or at least I get some idea about when it's coming. So is there a B2C aspect of this too? So if I want to take a bus somewhere, whether it's inside my city or in between cities, I know when it's supposed to arrive, but I also know when it is going to arrive
Absolutely,
too. Do you know what I
absolutely.
mean?
I think that's where the beauty of our system is. So we are definitely which we call it as a B2B2C, because at the end of the day, when we are facilitating this B2B operator, we have to help them get a demand. So yes, that's where the consumer angle comes in, where we are although helping out the operator, but eventually helping them operator to get new set of customers, or even the first customer which is there. And today, customer what they want is, if I talk from a data point of view, like still in spite of so much of GPS penetration, the mobile phone penetration, still we get lot of the queries. I would say lot of the queries, more than 70% of the queries is the customer is asking where is my bus,
Yep.
which
Yep.
is a very easily solvable problem. So that gives a very, very strong pointers around key, even though the GPS system is there, but the GPS system is broken. How do I break sure that broken system is working seamlessly and solving for the pain point of the consumer, like what you talk about? If I book a bus, can I know at what time it is going to reach so that I can plan out my journey further? So I think this
Right.
became the most critical point for us if the buses are there. And so I think this was like one of the pointers which sometimes the operators also feel, because we were charging them. Like, say, boss, you want to have a system for us, you have to pay a certain amount, not a bomb, but yes, definitely you have to pay a certain amount of things. So, but once they start finding a value that this is what the beneficial for the consumer, they happily accepted that. And I think that's what the beauty of it is. In the service-oriented industry, we realize if the people are able to find a value, then definitely they are ready to pay for it. Otherwise,
Right.
what we are right now, we are a very small player in the overall plethora of things. But right now, I think we are going in that direction where people are really finding a value, and slowly, we are going in that building up mode.
One of the things that you talked about at the beginning was you said you could see the customer happiness, right? As you built out, this is in one of your earlier roles. You must be able to see some customer happiness on the buses, in the bus in the go-go bus business as well. Like you said, if it's raining outside or if the weather's warm or if the weather's inclement at any level, if I have to wait 15 extra minutes, this is going to be a problem for me just because it makes me unhappy. But if I know, even the GPS system you said it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. If I know when it's going to be there, that's going to make me
Absolutely.
happy. Do you see this happiness as well from the bus drivers, from the bus operators,
Absolutely.
but
So
also from the bus
imagine a
riders? You know what I
situation
mean?
like, say, you're standing on a highway and it is freezing cold of, say, 2 degrees centigrade or 3 degrees centigrade in the night. Yeah,
Right.
people,
Or it's
and
raining.
specifically the long distance journey,
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
doing in the overnight because they want to optimize, like my daytime is being used for something else. In the night, I will be traveling. And imagine a situation what happens if you are standing on a road, the 2 degrees centigrade temperature outside, freezing cold, and you're just figuring out where is my bus. And if I give you at your palm top and you say, okay, now the bus is about to come at 15 minutes, you can safely stand at the side, or you can plan out your entire journey so that you're not exposed to the extreme weather conditions. And I think that's what we are solving. And then when we talk to the customer, that give us a sense of satisfaction to us also, like, okay, fine, you are solving something which is really, really valuable for these customers. And I think that's where that gives the entire kick to the team, that gives the motivation to the team also. Like, at the end of the day, we are making not the entire gamut of the population, but at least to one or two of people who are coming over. If they're happy, then we
Right.
also feel like we are doing something which is right.
Yeah. I want to get back to the numbers in a second because the numbers in India, by definition, are just large with 1.2 or 1.3 billion people. If
Exactly.
any percentage of that group does X, then X is going to be big. I want to get to that in a second.
Exactly.
But I'm curious about these conversations for you. In which city are you based?
So our office is in Gurgaon, which is next to the Delhi, which is the
Gorka.
capital of
Yep.
India. But
Right.
if we talk about my operations, we are largely operating in the tier two, tier three market, with eastern part of the
Okay.
country.
So you're also in these tier two and tier three parts in the eastern part of the country, you're also gathering a ton of data. And I'm also curious when you go and talk to the bus operators, not the first time, but after you implement the system, just at the beginning, right? And maybe they're not using all of your associated services, but just at the beginning, and they see a little bit of these efficiency gains. What's it like then to go and try to give them more services? Do you know what I mean? Is it easier then? Is it harder then? What is that? What are those conversations like?
There's two things. One, you ask a very pertinent question. So, two things. When you go to the tier two, tier three market, a lot of the people are not even exposed to the digital world. So, they still are being operating the entire thing on the pen and paper. So, for them, slightly become easier. They still have an apprehension about system, but they start getting convinced. And there are some people who had exposure of the system. They do the comparison. Okay, this versus that. So, for them, we show them what is the value add which gives them. What is the transparency we are
Right.
building up. And more than the transparency and more than value add, the biggest thing which we realize is today there are multiple systems available. And imagine a situation like we have multiple tabs open on your
Yeah.
system and you're managing the pricing, you're managing customers, you're managing feedback. And we say, Kibos, imagine a situation I give everything on one single
Right.
platform. Will that make your life easy? So then he relate to it. And that's why which we realized, okay, there I am not in a market where I need to sell the business of the bus. People are already
Right.
using it. But can I make it efficient? Can I make it reliable? Can I make sure that those guys are actually finding one? And that's why we feel that sometimes we feel that we are actually giving the wings to those people who are really, really dreaming of providing a pan-India players or a national players.
The bus, it's fundamentally a customer service business, right? It's not like there are packages on the bus per se. There may be some delivery, but it's mostly bringing humans from one place to another place, which is a
Exactly.
customer service business. Are you finding out that as you gather all this data, that then you allow the bus operators to provide better customer service and even things like dynamic pricing? So, better for the operators, maybe, but just better service all the way around. And as you gather more data, that, and I don't think people think about this necessarily, but that there's actually an artificial intelligence component to this as well.
I think Michael has somehow read our mind and he knows what exactly we are doing. So actually, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
We are doing all those things. We are actually, when we are saying, when we are empowering these bus operators to increase their profitability, we are definitely empowering with the pricing intelligence. We are empowering with the right pricing. The pricing is something very interesting market. We talk about the pricing are changing at every point of time,
Yep.
every point in a day, and every point in a week. How you are smartly giving this narrative to the operators to plan out their pricing so that you're not burning a hole in the consumer pocket also, and you're not
Right.
actually making sure the operators are missing out of an opportunity when
Right.
there was a huge demand. You would have earned a slightly more pricing around it. So yes, definitely we are doing all those things. We are building up a lot of the AI tools around it. We are building up a small CPU which will be installed on the bus, which will be doing the counting of the passengers inside the bus when they're getting in and when they're getting out. So
Wait a
this data
second.
become a very, very interesting proposition for the operator.
Wait, tell me how this works. So you're
Yeah,
working so closely with the bus operators that you've now gained enough trust from them where you can start putting hardware.
yeah.
Talk to me about this. Talk to me about what kind of hardware you're putting on the bus.
So it's a completely in-house based software hardware which we are building up right now. It's in the prototype stage right now. That's
Yep.
actually an AI-based system which will help the operators to basically control their revenue leakages. What happens is, although because you are working on a longer distance, the buses are going for almost say 200 kilometers to almost 1,000 kilometers, and the
Right.
operators has a very limited control. If somebody is onboarding a bus, maybe for a short trip or unapproved trip, how do you make sure that unauthorized passengers are not boarding the bus? How do I make sure
Right.
that unauthorized passenger, if it is boarding, can I give an alert or alarm at right point of time to the right stakeholder? If that gives bring in the discipline into the overall system, that help two purpose. One, definitely that helps me in revenue controlling the revenue leakages. Secondly, it actually enhances the customer safety to a multifold because I'm not allowing any unauthorized passengers or any unapproved passengers board the bus during the journey.
Now, we talked before about customer service too. And I remember when I used to live in Japan, I would walk into some restaurant in my neighborhood And if I went there enough times, I didn't even have to order per se because the chef or the waiter would just know me and would just say, Michael, do you want the same pizza that you got the last time you were here, kind of thing. And we talked earlier, if the bus is fundamentally a consumer service or a customer service business, will you be installing technology and building into that hardware, into that operating system, right? This ability to identify the
Yeah,
clients so that if they come on, like they know that they're just going 150 kilometers away, that the driver can then tell them, here's your stop. Do you know what I mean? All
yeah,
these little
yeah,
things that they can
yeah.
do to make that experience better as well.
And I think that's where the mobile technology today comes in. Like say today, if I say somebody is booking for 150 kilometers, even if you're sleeping or driver miss it out, I give a buzzer or alarm to the consumers in their hand so they know that the stop is about to come. So during the journey,
Right.
I can give you. It's all about how can give the information timely to the consumer instead of putting a loudspeaker, but it's actually putting a discomfort to the lot of other passengers.
Right,
Can
right,
I
right.
give a pointed, targeted message to that particular consumer that stop has arrived? So I think that's what we are doing. Technology today, the technology is giving you that power that you can do very, very localized, very, very targeted messaging to that particular consumer, and that's what we are doing.
I want to get back to this idea of pen and
Yeah,
paper that you talked about earlier, because I just had an idea. I'm sure you've already done this, but I'm just curious. If I'm running my business on pen and paper, particularly from a customer standpoint and a ticket sales standpoint, it probably also means that I'm running my finances on pen
exactly.
and paper. If there are 400,000 buses out there, and you said, I don't remember exactly how many companies there are,
2000 plus company. Yeah,
can you also provide, say it again?
2000 plus company.
So 2,000 plus companies, a lot of companies, but
Yeah,
can you also, once you get involved in the buying and selling of tickets, the artificial intelligence around dynamic pricing, you potentially could also get involved in payments. So it could be digital payments as well. Once you're doing that, can you also provide like a financial services platform for them? So not just from a logistics standpoint, they can be more efficient, but from a financial management standpoint as well. Do you know what I mean? And then build an entire financial services business around the revenue that's in the bus system.
absolutely right. I think that's where the fundamental of why we are calling us as a platform. And I think, although it's unfortunate, but yes, I think the COVID has given us lots and lots of the options to work upon. Like, so when this the demand situation get difficult, when the operators started facing a lot of financial difficulty, we were approached and we
Right.
approached a couple of the non-banking financial companies also. Can we provide them a small cash loans or maybe working capital loan? So we are in process.
Yep.
Let's say, can we give them some sort of a working capital loan because they have a credit history, they have already assets on their book. Can we help
Right.
them with some of the capital so that they can come back and restart their business? So that's definitely that is there. We are already doing in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's just revenue-based
Yeah,
financing, right? In other words, in the same way that big companies will fund e-commerce companies when they know the what's the right word, the consistency of their e-commerce revenues, you can also fund capex for bus companies and make a little bit of money there as well. But
absolutely,
but more importantly, and that's great for their growth. But more importantly, you can also provide this, I don't know what to call, like financial inclusion for them, so that even the profits that they make can then be potentially invested in financial service products that they didn't even know existed, because you, now that you have those people on the platform, you can offer
absolutely.
them other services as well, right?
Absolutely. I think that's what which we sometimes calls ourselves also. If we are not a typical mobility company, you have to think about mobility on the e-commerce. Like today, everything is talking about digitalization and transactions on the platform. Can we
Right.
enable on both the demand and supply side, what we call it as the B2B2C? Can we enable both the demand and supply side to actually create new experience, a new revolution for the consumers who are looking to travel? Because ultimately, I'm not saying I'm creating a demand for the travel. The demand for travel is already there. Can I make it
Exists. It
efficient?
already is
Can
there.
I make it more
Right.
smoother? Can I make it more hassle-free? So that if you know that if I book on a gogoBus, I get the seat, I know it beforehand. So rather to give you that example, we have gone down to that level. Like we have created like the monthly ride pass. A couple of users are there which they travel every weekend to their home. Let's say you want a
Right.
particular seat that has been already earmarked for you. You have
Right.
bought that monthly pass for that. So you are secure. You know that this time slot, my bus is this number there is fixed, and I can go anytime and everywhere on that particular day.
So this may feel like a little bit out of left field, but I'm curious about this as well. Whenever I think about platform businesses, I try to figure out what other services you can add, not just for the business side, but for the consumers as well. So
Absolutely,
work with me on this for a second. If there are 400,000 buses working every single day in India, and tell me where my math is wrong here. If
absolutely,
only 100 people ride every bus on average, it's 40 million people. We talked earlier about how just the numbers in India get large quickly.
exactly.
Is there a partnership for you with a health insurance company, an embedded insurance company, to offer ride insurance, but then other types of insurance and other types of financial services to the clients because they're already maybe paying digitally with this thing too? So now you have this multi-sided market and a massive opportunity for both sides. Is that fair?
Absolutely right. And we have not done integration right now, but yes, that is the plan. We'll definitely get it done also because the insurance is one of the critical aspects of the travel. How we can make sure this would be additional level of safety which we wanted to offer to our consumers. So definitely that will be there.
It's just so interesting what you can offer to, because I'm presuming more than 100 people a day ride the bus, but just the math was
Yeah,
easy, right? So I just
yeah.
figured I'd say 100 to 40 million. What else is coming? In other words, I'm not in the bus business, I'm not in the payments business, but what else is coming that I may not have thought about already?
The biggest part which we feel is, okay, let's say tomorrow what exactly we are trying to solve for. Let's say somebody want to own a bus. He's thinking where I should run a bus. How do I run the bus? I don't have any system. So we say we have to be the first answer to that solution. We say, okay, you own an asset, but you don't know how to run the bus. We will provide you that intelligence. You don't know where to run the bus because it's not about you're not running a bus in a one particular. You're talking about many to one mapping. You're talking about at least 30 to 40 passengers, finding 30 to 40 passengers for that particular time slot to travel in that one
Right.
destination. The moment of that comes up, the problem will have a significant amount of complexity, and that's when which we want to go step by step, solving for one piece, and then we go for the other piece. Otherwise, what will happen is it's easier to talk, but then a lot of things get broken. So what you're saying, how we go gradually. Our first step is how we make sure that buses are coming on my platform, they are GPS enabled, they are trackable. Then we go to the next level is how we go deeper into the demand side, building a machine learning and AI platform to go and predicting the demand, and how we leverage the data and enable these operators again to get more businesses around it. And in this journey, what had happened is today OEMs, like although we talk about their 2,500 plus operators, there are 400,000 buses which are running on long distance. There are only seven OEMs in
Right.
India. So all these seven OEMs are providing this. So for them, we become additional levers who actually go to the mass market without putting significant amount of investment in setting up your shop, setting up the player. Let's say you want to set up your retail shop. Let's say we can become your partner. So we can be a real enabler of the bus mobility ecosystem, both on the demand side and supply side. That's what we envision the gogoBus to be.
And is there an opportunity for you to have your own branded buses as
Yes,
well?
definitely. Definitely.
I
Yeah.
think that answer means, Michael, that's the dumbest thing you've asked me
Yeah.
all day. But go ahead. So, do you have your own branded buses? And if you do you start with gas powered buses? Do you start with diesel powered buses? Do you go right to electric? Like, what do you
So
do?
if
What's
you
the
ask
view
me,
there?
the answer is very simple. So we are a platform. So like for me, the fuel is just basically a mode to empower those buses. Today it is the gas
I
powered.
understand.
Tomorrow if it's electric powered, it's more than happy. So we are always focusing on that. In any case, by definition, the buses is talking about taking away at least 30 cars off the road. So that way, we in any case are contributing towards the environment. The moment it becomes more of the electric also, then you had a significant amount of the carbon saving again. So I think this is one thing which we are realizing more than the metro and the tier one market where people have slightly more purchasing power, where people can afford private vehicles. If you go to the tier two
Yep.
market or tier three market or even tier four, five market, the buses are being predominantly used. People don't want to buy a four-wheeler or a two-wheeler because for them most affordable means if you have to travel for 150 kilometers or 200 kilometers across the city, the bus is the first port of call. But rather train would have been the first port of call, but because the trains are not available and they are not available across, and that's where it answers. Like say India has almost like 5 lakh kilometer network of roads while the rail network is just 1 lakh kilometer. I'm saying 100,000 kilometers. So there's five times the road
Yeah.
network is
Yeah.
there. That's where it answers that why the bus mobility is going to be the future and people who have to travel for longer distance, how you can actually solve because parents are using it, students are using it, even people are using for social causes, people are
Right.
using for the business. The people have to travel from point A to point B. They don't have any other means, so they do the business shopping. Like there's a lot of countries, lot of cities within the country where the businessman is just traveling from his home to the city to procure the material for his shop, and then in the nights he's going back. Can we empower all those people? Can we?
Right.
And those are the regular customers. And that's why we feel being a platform that empowers you to work on both the sides, and where we can not only work out going in the direction of creating a positive impact for the environment, but also make sure that we are creating a positive impact for the society.
That is a great way to end this conversation. Amit Gupta, a co-founder of gogoBus. That was awesome. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you.